Hello, everybody. Welcome to another session of Lunch with the Boxer. We are super excited to be hosting you again today. My name is Gina. Welcome back for those of you who have been joining us throughout the summer. Today's session, we have a huge update about orientation. We are so excited. It just means we are closer to having our students on campus, and we are super excited to have Denise here with us. Throughout the session, if you have questions, go ahead and add it into the chat box below. We'll go ahead and read the questions out loud so everybody can see it. We'll also go ahead and if you want to send your questions to me privately, I'll go ahead and ask those questions to Denise for you. Without further ado, hi, it's so good to see you again, Denise.
You as well, and welcome everybody. Super excited to be here and bring you as many updates as that we have available. I actually just finished a 2-hour meeting with our task force to bring all of our students back to campus and provide as much safety and all the different guidelines and adhere to everything that we're being asked to do. So I hope that I will have all of the answers to your questions, or at least tell you where we're at in the process of doing that. I also wanted to just say in general that if you have any questions, please feel free to contact us.
Oops, I think you accidentally muted.
Okay, I think I just remuted myself. Awesome. I love Zoom. Love it. I was just saying that I put in the chat how to contact us. And right now it is really, really helpful to contact us either by email or the contact form that I put in there. My staff is currently working out of 3 different states. So getting all the messages off the phone is a little more difficult at the moment. So that is the easiest and best way to contact us right now. So I have gotten to this point that there's lots of communications that have gone out and people really just have questions. So I think it's best to just answer questions.
Awesome. We'll get started. We did have a few questions that came in prior when families were registering for the event. So while we are waiting for our families to ask questions right now, I'm going to go ahead and get started with these ones here. The first question that came in was a recent email stated that there would be group rates at the local hotels. Do you have that published anywhere? Is that on a website, or are there any kind of easy guidelines for them to look at?
Sure. So we are finalizing the last little details. We thought we had it all ready to go, and then we realized we have some more dates that we need to offer the group rate for. So we have gone back into negotiations with those motels, and we should have that by the end of this week, and we will publish it on the orientation website. And we will also send out a link in our next large communication so that you'll have the direct information as to where to find that.
Perfect. And then the next question, and this is a question that we've been getting a lot in the admissions office. Are students required to take a coronavirus test prior to arriving on campus?
So this is what is overall going to happen. Once we know what date your student will be arriving to campus, they will start getting communications from the institution reminding them to self-monitor and what that should look like and what they need to do at those points. We are at this moment not requiring COVID-19 testing. We're asking people to self-monitor and watch for their symptoms, and then they will get additional communications as to if something comes up, what should you do? So that will happen approximately 18 days before your arrival, and then continued information up until the date that you arrive.
Perfect. And this next question, I believe it might be a better question for next week, where we have our Dean Phillips coming back and doing another general overview and update about everything that's going to be happening on campus. And we're also going to go ahead and have Denise jump in at that time as well too. So we're going to go ahead and have Denise come here today and next week. So we have her for both weeks. We're super excited. But with the COVID-19 cases that are increasing, we are seeing a spike throughout the state and just in all the states in America right now. If students do the online classes in the fall, will there be an orientation in January for those that are from out of state because they won't know how to get around and would need to move into the dorm? And right now we have a 3 pathway. Is there going to be a 4th pathway considered to do online all year?
So I can talk about orientation, and I can tell you that fourth pathway, I'm sure, is being discussed on the academic side because we're just seeing additional things continuing to roll out. So lots of things are being discussed every day as things just keep changing. But with orientation, we always offer an orientation in the spring as we have new students arrive. So we will continue to host that orientation just like normal and add any additional students that we're studying remotely that are going to be on campus into that orientation, so that they get the same information and connection pieces, and we'll also have the move-in piece as well. So that will happen, and that communication comes out typically in December. With the changes this year with the COVID-19 situation, that may be an ongoing rolling communication just as things continue to evolve. So we'll be sending that out, and yes, there will be a spring orientation.
Awesome, thank you. This next question that I got here is, we have a family who actually have two boxers coming in this year. We're super excited. And I know with the move-in kind of changes, there are gonna be time slots that they have to sign in. And I think they're wondering if they can coordinate with somebody to be able to bring them on the same day or at least around the same time frame as well too.
Sure.
They've emailed and haven't heard back. Was there a different preferred communication?
So I am aware of that situation with that email, and there was some discussion happening behind the scenes as to how to coordinate and make that all happen. So you will be getting a response. We just needed to connect all the dots prior to sending that out. So look for that probably tomorrow by the time that everybody's schedules have aligned to verify exactly how we need to make that happen. But yes, we anticipate that's not going to be an issue.
So
And I should just say, we're trying to work with people that have special circumstances individually, and that is when you should email us. Email us at the orientation at pacificu.edu. Our residence life staff, we actually have one of the members who's coordinating the move-in on the orientation team doing a dual role right now. And so we're able to coordinate all those pieces across department and division lines.
thank you so much for doing all this. I know it's always kind of like orchestrating a big kind of event here. So the next question is, it's more about voyages. Do you know if there's any updates on voyages? I know there's been changes with move-in. Has there been any changes with voyages?
So you all should have received a communication, I believe that was early last week, with the overall information about all move-ins and information. That has not changed at this time. And I know that Voyages also sent out a communication. I think it was a couple days prior to our initial communication from orientation. But yes, that is still on tap to move forward as planned with that actual date. And if you don't have the date, I can pull it up here real quick. With Voyages, that date is August 21st. And I know that probably the next question that I'm going to get, and I think I actually do now see it in the chat as well, is when will you get the time slots for moving in? So this is also all the connecting the dot pieces. So July 20th is when we plan to release that, because what needs to happen is for those residential students, their housing assignments need to be complete, so that way we can coordinate which days and times so that we don't have people on top of each other in the same wing. It's a very interesting game of Tetris. This is my new explanation for how this is all working. So normally we play Tetris with orientation, and you know, it's up and down. And right now it seems like we're getting collided with Tetris this way and this way and this way and this way. And so it just takes a little bit of figuring out all those logistical pieces behind the scenes. But look for that communication to come out with how to sign up and those time frames on July 20th. July 17th is the date that I've been told you should get your housing assignments. And then I wanted to just bring up one other thing in case we have students and families on here that have commuter students. Anybody that is coming to campus will do a centralized check-in. We will have additional information on that, but on that initial day that you arrive, you will have a centralized check-in. We will have additional time frames that we will send out for when that arrival can happen, so that we're not overlapping with the move-in pieces as well. But for commuters, really look at that Wednesday, the 26th, as the day that we're going to try to bring the commuters and get them all on campus with those different parts and pieces that they need to do while they're on campus itself. The other thing that I wanted to mention is if you are purely remote in other state, another country, wherever that may be, we will be doing additional outreach directly to you, so you're not going to miss anything. Please note that you're not going to miss anything. I believe we also put in the communication, although it seems like I've decided I've started to dream that I've sent this communication, so if I haven't, please bear with me. We will be doing an online orientation for all students. So you will be getting all of that information in early August. Also, the family and parent orientation that we would typically do in a 2-day format on campus, those presentations will also be put online. So if you're not traveling with your student, you will still get the same information. So I think those are the updates that I either have already been sent out or I've dreamed about sending out, or are in the process of being sent out. I think those are my
we're in the same boat as you. It was like, did anybody send out that email I thought I was supposed to? So I definitely get it. So I guess this kind of ties in with the next question that popped up, and it actually kind of ties in nicely. Can you talk a little bit about what orientation is going to look like? I know we're talking about move-in, and then we're doing online orientation. So could you actually kind of start from maybe the beginning and let us know what kind of that structure is going to look like?
Sure. So late July, you will start hearing from your orientation ambassadors. They are peers that help our students progress through coming into campus with the transition, becoming an official Boxer student. You're already a Boxer, but as that transition happens into the academic year. So you'll start to hear from them. We will actually introduce them to you in a communication, so you'll be hearing from us and introducing them to you. We also will have a newsletter that is almost ready to go out that will be on our website that we'll also send, and that's just some general information that you'll need to be aware of. There's a lot to learn in a short amount of time, so the more times that we can give out that information in different ways, we hope that something will stick along the way, or you'll know where to go back and get it. So you'll hear from the ambassadors, then you'll start hearing from us and the institution in general about, self-monitoring, any logistical pieces about your arrival that we have not prior sent out, and then we'll send a reminder just so you're very well aware of, if you're coming to campus, what you need to do. When you arrive, because we're doing rolling move-in and rolling orientation, it's going to look different than we've done before. We're excited about some of the opportunities that this has allowed with doing an online component that we've not done in the past. And this is really helpful, I think, for family members. And I should tell you, I do have a student at Pacific. Because if you're not available to come, and it's very difficult right now, we get it with COVID-19 and all the different travel restrictions going on, that's not something that your family may be able to do. So we want to make sure that you're still getting all of the same information, and you'll be able to go back and review that. So that's something that's pretty exciting this year that's a little different, is we're able to get that stuff all out online for that online orientation. Students will have their own online orientation. And that'll come in 2 formats, but it'll be all synchronized as one. So that way we can give general information with those presentations. But then there's also some components that you'll do through a Moodle course that we need to make sure that you see and have read and done. State mandates, things that are important to the institution, so that we can say that, yes, you have received that information. And then when you arrive to campus, we are planning all sorts of different things between your move-in, logistically doing some of those errands with making sure you got your ID card, um, your books, all of those different components, because that's all part of orienting you to the campus, but then also helping to connect you as well. And so we're planning small group to adhere to all of the different COVID-19 guidelines. By the way, we are working to make sure that we are in compliance with state and county guidelines. And I know for many that are not in the state of Oregon or on this side of the state, that can look very different. And so I just want to remind you that we will be sending out, this is what is happening at this time according to where we are at in the county and in the state for Oregon. So once you arrive, we will have some activities that you will do throughout the time, depending on which day you arrive. We will give you an individualized schedule. So if you're coming in for athletics, that'll be one type with athletics information as well. Voyages the same. And then if you're just arriving during our normal arrival dates, we will have your own schedule as well. It's like 12 different schedules times 4 times, I haven't decided how many days. So it's an interesting schematic that we have started about how to plug everything in and make sure that you have those opportunities. So that's kind of how orientation will be with all the different logistical pieces. I also just want to remind our students who are remote, not commuting to campus, but solely remote, we also will be doing our own touch points with you to build a community amongst those students as well, just like we would do if you were coming to campus.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And the kind of follow-up question that came out was, when will the student orientation be sent out? So it looks like they'll get an individualized kind of itinerary about student orientation when they move in and kind of all have all that information. So hopefully that answered that question that came in. The next one was, with COVID, what's the maximum students in one room?
So I just told you that I came from this large task force meeting, and one of the subcommittees actually is all about residence halls and living. And so that committee has gone according to the guidelines set by the state, and it's 64 square feet per person to be in a room, whether that would be single or dual occupancy. Every room at Pacific has been measured, and I know it's amazing, right? And we are able to do the double occupancy or the occupancies that were typically in those rooms. Pacific is great. We actually have larger residence hall spaces than many of our public institutions just as a normal piece. And so we're going to be able to house our students, at least at this moment, according to where we're at in this phase, according to all the guidelines, the way we typically have done that.
Perfect. Yes, I remember seeing the dorms for the first time and being very impressed that we had windows in the dorms. The other question that came in was student athletes moving in a little bit earlier, like the football, soccer, and volleyball teams. Will there be a need for parents to come back for any other orientation events at the end of the month when kind of the full orientation happens, or will they just kind of be okay after dropping the student off that first time?
Sure. So we are planning that on the day that your student arrives, we will have a 1-hour Q&A for the family members that are there. We know that there are going to be questions that happen when you start to move your students in. So we're going to provide a 1-hour Q&A. There will be some errands that you may want to run with your student while on campus. And then we're going to ask you to leave and not come back. And that'll be how we do each day's move-in and orientation. So you will not miss anything because we're going to provide that each day that there is an actual orientation and move-in. Part of the reason we're doing it this way is to try to provide as safe of a community with the number of people that are arriving, so that those that have already arrived will have things that they're doing, and that allows for those new people arriving to have that same experience and opportunity to move in with the safety guidelines that are provided.
Perfect. And then the other question is student ID cards. I know typically when we were in Hawaii and we were doing in-person registration, we took their student IDs, we would surprise students in the morning and say, hey, welcome to Advising. Surprise, you're getting your student ID picture taken. But how is that going to look this year? Will they
Sure.
have their student IDs before, or will they get it at check-in?
So what you will be, and there will be a communication that comes out relatively soon. I know they're working on a video right now for this, but we're going to ask that you take a photo of yourself with nothing behind you, background, portrait style, you know, great selfie. Probably will be a much better photo than my first ID card at Pacific. I'm an alum and had just moved in, and I was on the third floor of a building, and it was a super hot day, and I looked like I had melted. And so this will be a great way to get a better photo of yourself. But you will then, so take that photo, and then you will actually put it in a Dropbox file. I'm sorry, not a Dropbox. It's a box file. We will provide that link to you and how to do it, and you'll name it with your name. That will go to our CPS office, and they will be pre-printing those cards. You will receive that card with your centralized check-in on that day. If for some reason you didn't send your photo in, we will have the ability to take your photo at that time and then get it to you later in that day. So that'll be the process this year of making that happen.
Perfect. A couple of, I guess, local lingo that we use here. I know you mentioned Moodle before. Our students should know what Moodle is, and if you don't yet, that's our kind of online dashboard for classes that are going to be online, and just kind of a lot of announcements that are coming up. And so talk to your student about Moodle, and they'll be able to let you know. If they don't know, then have them reach out to either their admissions counselor, and we can help get that set up for you guys. So that's what Moodle is, and Box with a capital B is kind of our cloud server per se at Pacific. So you'll hear a lot of things like box files. We'll put it on Box. It's not an actual box, it's Box with a capital B. And so those are kind of some of the local vernacular that we're using here.
Gina, I should also say CPS stands for Campus Public Safety.
Thank you, CPS. Any other things that we use a lot?
Yeah, there's a lot of them, and actually in the newsletter that's coming out, we have a page of acronyms, and it kind of just goes through some of those that you'll hear often. It's not all encompassing, but the ones that you'll hear the most.
Perfect. Thank you for that. I know it usually confuses a lot of people. So, and the next question, I don't know if anybody can answer this, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Do you anticipate still being in phase 1 by the time orientation starts?
We would all love to know that answer. What I can tell you is just what has come out in the last day or so. If you don't know, we are now grouped with 2 other counties because we're in the Portland metro area. And if one of those counties isn't ready to move to the next phase, then all 3 of us are not moving to that next phase, because there's so many people that cross over lines to work and live in another county, all of those different pieces. So if I had my way, we would definitely be in phase 2. But if we're not, we will adjust to adhere to what they're requiring in phase 1. We're very fluid and adaptable. Those are my words for the summer. If any of you have been on a call with me earlier, you've already heard me say this, but I just keep repeating that in my head. We are very fluid and adaptable, and just go with the flow. And we know that it's frustrating, not only for us, but it's also frustrating to you. This is not how we would love to welcome your student to our campus. This is my 21st year as professional staff at Pacific, and it's just very different. And so we're going to still create that experience, and we want to have that excitement, because this is an exciting time in your family and your student's life. It's just gonna look different. So phase 1, phase 2, it doesn't matter. We're going to do what we need to do to bring you all in and have the best experience as possible.
Absolutely. And again, student safety and health is our number one priority. So we are definitely going to be monitoring the situation. The task force is still going strong and meeting every day. And we have a bunch of sub task force as well too, to be able to kind of get everyone through this. We're getting a couple of questions coming in. The first one that came in is, you mentioned getting books when talking about logistics. Will we have time to check in and purchase books, or do they have to do that on their own? Can their parents be there with them? Because I know having a card and paying for those books, that kind of brings in some other obstacles as well.
So we are working with the bookstore right now. They are developing some information specific to this, and even more so this year because there's some great opportunities. So what we're recommending that students do is purchase their books online through the bookstore. They will pre-package them for you. And there will be a way to do that so you know what classes that you are taking, and then they correlate the books for you. You can also purchase swag as part of that order as well. So if you want that, I'm a Pacific student, I'm a Pacific family member, you'll be able to add that to that box as well. And then we are coordinating at that centralized check-in. If you have pre-purchased those books, we will have those boxes ready for you and hand them to you upon that centralized check-in. One of the things that we're really trying to do, because many of our spaces are smaller than we would like them to be, and due to the regulations, we're only allowed to have certain number of people in those spaces at one time. So what we're really trying to do is minimize some of that foot traffic to those heavy utilized areas, such as the bookstore. So I meet with actually the director of the bookstore every week to figure out where we're at and what we need to do to get that information and how to do that. I also should mention, I have a wonderful staff of students who help assist with orientation along with additional professional staff. And they have been instrumental in saying this would be super helpful if we had known ahead of time, and especially this year, how to do this. And so all of those pieces are being built because those students are giving that information. So that's a long explanation of, if you are able, plug in that information, order your books online, and then we will hand you that box when you initially check in at that centralized check-in. As all of you and wherever you're at and the positions that you're currently in, things just take a little bit of time. And so we've met with people, and now we're asking them to make all these parts and pieces, and we'll be rolling that out towards the end of this month into that early August piece. Having a student at Pacific who was a freshman last year, even though I worked at Pacific and have been here for many, many years, there was still things I was like, now, exactly how does that work on the student side? Because I'm really not sure. And I felt like I was even missing things. I was like, this is crazy. I've been here forever. So just know it was rolled out in a way to make sure that you don't miss things, but that it's ready to go for you at the time. So that way you're not spinning your wheels trying to order books, but you haven't done your advising yet, or however that may be for any specific question. Again, though, if you have a question, obviously your admissions counselors can get you in touch. You can email orientation if it's specific. And there's lots of pieces that we coordinate. That's what orientation is really about, is coordinating all the different offices that need to get you information to help you be successful as you become a boxer, and make sure that you get that to you in a format.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And a couple of questions about books did come in after that. So will there be a list of which books and what to buy, and when should they buy their books? And so I know this week is our first week of student registration and advising. So wait until you have your registration and advising appointment. You want to make sure you know what classes that you are taking. Professors should be reaching out either via email or Moodle about the required textbooks, and then that is when you will know what books that you will need for this incoming fall. So wait on buying textbooks. I would advise talking to your advisor during advising and registration, and they'll give you some more information. And I think we also Denise, if you can correct me if I'm wrong, we do price matching at our bookstore, I think with Amazon and Barnes and Noble, I believe.
Well, we are a Barnes and Noble bookstore.
There it is.
And so I believe their normal pieces that they do as a Barnes and Noble is what they would be doing. They do have used books as well. They have a rental system as well. I feel weird saying that twice, but the other thing I wanted to let you know is all faculty members send the bookstore their required books. And that's why I mentioned that some of our students recommended some additional videos take place, because what can happen is once you know your classes, so yes, definitely wait until after advising happens, you will be able to go to their website and plug in your classes, your advising number, which you'll be able to find. They're going to show you where to find that in your advising sessions. Then it'll populate what those books are that you will need. So that's the behind the scenes system that happens with the faculty members getting it to the bookstore, so then that they can help populate and tell you what books that you need.
Perfect, thank you. And some of you guys should have also received your FYS books, so you'll get some more information on that coming soon. And so we have a couple of other questions. When is payment due for this year?
I don't know the exact date. Do you?
I think general rule of thumb, typically the first payment is usually due August 15th. It's usually the 15th of every month of the academic calendar year. If you're doing a monthly payment, we are actually having a financial aid and business office workshop to kind of help you guys navigate how to view your bill, how to pay your bill, when you need to pay it. Same thing with financial aid. And so we're actually going to have a few of those workshops popping up. So keep an eye out for that. The admissions counselor should be emailing all of our families fairly soon about that communication. So we'll actually walk you through all of that. So payment and all that information will be coming to you guys in a little bit. I think the other question was, will we be able to get a mailing address prior to move in to send in supplies? I added the address in there, but Denise, can you kind of talk about how that process works?
Sure. So the mail services will be sending out information about your, what we call your UC, University Center, because that's where it's housed, box. That's your university mailing box that you'll receive mail at. Here's the good news. Our mailing services staff is amazing. And even if you do not have that UC box on there, they will look it up and get that into your student's box regardless. A lot of people want to send up packages prior to arrival, which is great. We encourage that. But my recommendation, because they have a very small area in general, is wait until closer to your arrival date. It's just hard to house, I don't know, 6,000 boxes at one time. So especially early on in the summer months. So, you know, get those items in your cart, and then closer to your arrival date, go ahead and send those up. You should receive, I believe that goes out sometime in late July with those actual numbers. But again, Gina put in the chat how to address that if you don't have that UC box number. And I'm also going to just tell you that students love to get mail. I know that it's unusual in this day and age because, you know, we're on our phones texting or computer messaging, however, but it's really an awesome feeling to go to your mailbox, because we ask them to go check it at least once a week, if not more, to actually get mail from somebody. I know that oftentimes I've had students come in and they have this package. I'm like, what's in there? And they're like, I hope it's cookies. And I'm like, oh, you should open those in my office. Yeah, let's see what's in that package. So kind of look at it as like they went away for camp for the summer and you pre-had their address, and periodically send them something. I do recommend, if it's perishable, that you send them a note saying, hey, maybe you should go check your mailbox. If it's fresh flowers or that type of a thing, our mail services tries to connect with that student on that day that it arrives. And so just a little push out there of think of your students, send them some actual mail once in a while. because it's kind of fun to open that box and get something that's not just, you know, normal mail from the university.
And like Denise said, there will be some time to, after you move in, to purchase some additional items if you need. And we are in Oregon, so there is no sales tax. That's something that I like to remind all of my out-of-state families. So no sales tax here, which is kind of nice. And one of the questions was from a previous session. It's actually a really good question. You talked about assigning students to groups or pods. I think we were going to call them families. I don't remember what the actual term was, but any idea if we're still moving forward with this idea, and if you can explain for those who haven't been here what the initial idea was?
So typically we assign all new students to small pod groups. I don't know where that term came from. It's been here for years, and I tried to change it one year and students were like, you cannot change that. I was like, okay, obviously this is a Pacific tradition that I cannot help transition word-wise. So that is changing how we do that this year. Typically, it would be more of a randomized system according to freshman or transfer students, and they get assigned to a Boxer ambassador. So they're still going to get assigned to a Boxer ambassador, and we don't have all the specific details because we're waiting to see what we think will be the best way to keep them in their small cohorts. I can tell you that the terminology we're currently using, if they are in the residence halls, is their family unit is their roommate, their close contact group is their wing and hall, or wing and floor, and then their house is their residence hall. And that's really part of our bigger picture of how we will assign those different pod groups. But we're also taking into account the days that people arrive and how we will manage that piece of the puzzle of creating pod groups. So that is not going to happen until late July, after people have started to sign up for their arrival times. So that's just a little bit different, but yes, you will still be a part of a pod. You will still have an ambassador that is connecting with you and helping you through that process. And that's how that's going to work.
Awesome, thank you. Is the UC, or I guess our post office, full service? Are students able to send things as well rather than just receiving things?
So the mail services is a full mailroom. FedEx, UPS, USPS, any other type of mailing system that's out there, they receive and they can send out. They're really great as well if your student has a package that they're trying to send, to help them figure out what's the best way to send that. They are currently developing how that will look this year because they are in a small location, and so going into their space is not as amenable to the safety guidelines. So they're developing a plan right now, which will be communicated out to your students. But yes, full service mailroom, it's amazing. I sometimes watch the packages that are coming in right before orientation, and I'm just like, wow. I thought I had a job to do. I have nothing to do compared to that.
Yeah, it's like mountains of boxes that are coming in, and you can see them trying to climb over and get to the shelf and all that. So they do an amazing job, and they are very helpful with students. If you just say like, oh, when does the package need to arrive? It's going to be the cheaper route if you do it this way. So they do all of that for us and stuff. So a couple of questions that came in that are kind of similar. So the first question is, does our meal plan begin at check-in? And then the other question is, how do we purchase meal plans? They're still kind of confused with how the dining portion of this works.
Sure.
A little bit over how that's going to look like.
Mm-hmm. So if you are with an early arrival prior to the 23rd, so athletics and voyages, they are taking care of your meals, and they will communicate out when those are and how that works. When you arrive anytime after the 23rd, your meal plan will begin. We are also working with the local area restaurants to offer some Pacific discounts on the days of arrival. We don't want to set a specific schedule for you because we know that your family members and you are going to be doing some of those other errands as well. So that gives you an opportunity to also go off campus and look at some of those restaurants. Food service will be available on that day. Food service is going to look a little different. I think I say that every time. Everything looks a little different. And they are currently developing a video as to the flow of how that will work so that students will know that. There's going to be a COVID-19 Moodle course that will be sent out to your students. I believe, I'm not sure. You know what? I'm not even going to give you a date, but it's prior to their arrival, that will go through those COVID specific things they need to know, such as how will the food service work? How will the walkthrough pieces work? How to get to their classes and everything with, you know, going in one door and out the other, those type of things. And also support. You know, I work in the area of student affairs in general. I also oversee a couple of other offices. And so the support aspect of once they're here continues, that doesn't change, but how we are going to be actually offering those different support pieces may look different. You know, I have an open door policy, and this has been one of the hardest things for me from working from home right now is, well, I could open my door, but nobody's going to come and see me. So we're doing a lot more things by appointment through Zoom, but we're here. We want to answer your questions. We want to help support your students. We just need people to communicate in just different ways than are normal.
Awesome. Thank you. And this next question, I think it's more with business office, but I'm just going to ask it for you anyway as a mom who went through this last year. How and when can we complete insurance waivers so the charge doesn't go on our bill?
I believe you can start that process now if you have access, and this may not start until advising, which I think starts next week. Actually, I think it's tomorrow that advising starts. And if you haven't signed up for your advising appointment or don't know how to do that, connect back with your admissions counselor and they can help you get connected if you haven't seen that. But you can log on to Boxer Online and there is a location in there that talks about insurance. I believe you fill out a form on there. You have to provide documentation with their ID card for their insurance, submit it in. I believe the deadline is August 15th to have those submitted. If there is a reason why you're not able to submit those by August 15th, you need to connect with the business office and let them know so they can flag your account that that's coming. I actually meet with the business office at 2 o'clock today. So I know that there was another question about when payments were due and the payment plans. And since I'm here next week, I will ask that question and have a date for you, just to make sure that we're all on board. And plus, obviously, Gina has already said there will be some additional sessions with them directly. So the insurance waiver, Boxer Online, fill out the form. You know what? I'm going to plug this as well. It's really important if you to check your financial aid package once it's been awarded, and that's through Boxer Online. And the reason that's important is sometimes there are pieces that they still need, and it's really important to get those to them as quickly as possible. People get called for verification. There's no rhyme or reason for it, right? It's just the federal government says this person and this person and this person. So make sure that you check that because there may be additional documents that they need to get from you. I know that my family had 2 documents we didn't even know, and my son said to me, he's like, I don't know why I haven't received this information. We logged into Boxer Online and he looked it up. He's like, oh my gosh, we have 2 more documents we need. And so we were able to get those turned in. But so just remember, Boxer Online is a great resource. We're going to be going over that as well in those online materials. But once you have access to it, kind of become familiar with that and check those different areas that'll be super important right now for you to have a little bit more knowledge on.
Thank you. That helps a lot. And I think the next question is actually kind of going back to the pods. Will students not living on campus still be in pods? Like, will they be able to have that connection? And if so, how is that going to look like for those commuter students?
So if your student is a commuter student and will be coming to campus, yes, we will have pods for them. Those will be based on their check-in date times, because every student will be doing a centralized check-in. So we'll base that off of that. If your student is fully online remotely, we will be doing a separate pod group. And depending on the numbers of how many students that ends up being, will depend on how we break that out. So it may be 1, it may be 3. We just don't know because we don't know of the numbers yet. So yes, everybody gets a pod.
Thank you. Another question that came in, how do I register for classes? If you don't have a session yet, you should have already filled out your AIS, which is your academic interest survey. That was sent out when you first deposited to Pacific. So make sure to check your email if you haven't. They were sent to your Pacific email account from Advising Center. You can also find that information on our website, but you should have filled out your academic interest survey, and Advising should have already been in contact with you if you did about signing up for advising time. So if you don't know your advising and registration information yet, or you haven't signed up for a time yet, go ahead and reach out to Advising and they will help you. I'll go ahead and add that email in the chat box below. So that should have already kind of had the ball rolling on there. So while I put that information, this is actually a really good question about kind of COVID and how things are going. What are the rules currently in Forest Grove? We have a lot of families who are out of state and kind of confused. Are masks required? Is it just takeout? What's kind of the enforced rules right now? Could you kind of go a little bit over that?
Yes, I'm more than happy to. But what I'm also going to tell you is, and my staff keeps saying, we need to send this out, we need to send this out. And I said, we're going to wait until closer to time because things keep changing. But we will send out information as to what the requirements are at the time of your arrival. So please know, as they change closer to your arrival, we will send that out. As of right now, face masks are required in the entire state of Oregon in any inside venue and outside venue that you cannot 6 feet distance. So inside all the time, outside if you cannot be in a 6-foot social distancing opportunity. With the businesses and restaurants, there's a couple of different things. So all businesses, you are required to wear your face masks. Most of them are large enough that they don't have wait times. There are a few locations that they can only have a certain number inside their business, and so they have somebody standing outside, and as 2 people come out, 2 people can go in. Those are fewer and far between, but that is how things are being directed. Most all stores have one-way up aisles and down aisles and social distancing guidelines posted on their doors, and people that are around to help with that. I went to a farmer's market not long ago, and they had very distinct ways that you could come in, ways that you could be in there. They had safety monitors at each station, and then one way out. And so they're being great about signage, having people to help as you go around. That's the biggest thing I can say is watch for the signage, adhere to what's being asked of you. It's becoming a normal thing for all of us to be wearing masks when we're out in public, to be going up and down aisles in one way or another. And my personal thing is, you know, even though you have a mask on, it's okay to smile and talk to people and still be that amazing, warm person that you are. I know it's hard times right now, and sometimes just that, hey, thanks for moving out of the way from me or whatever, it can really make a person's day. So that's my own little personal thing. When it comes to restaurants, as of July 1, because this has changed, you are to wear a face mask in. Most restaurants are have somebody at the door who are seating you. You can be seated. They have tables that have been dispersed because there are specific regulations as to how those need to be spaced properly, and how many people can be in those locations at one time. You can remove your face mask as you are drinking or eating, and then you are to put it back on. All employees are wearing face masks. That's a requirement. Um, I believe every business is still doing takeout. So that is a great way to utilize that service as well. But at the moment in our phase, and it's kind of like phase 1.5 because it's morphed a little bit. We're also able to see our hairdressers and stuff with specific requirements. You sign a form that tells you or what time you went in and all of that great information. You wear a face mask, they wear a face mask. Um, you sanitize hands. So it's really been systemized to help protect people as best possible. And we're normalizing that because it's going to be part of our community and our country for quite some time until things continue to go on a downward slope and there's a vaccine and all of those great things that are happening around the world as well. So that's what's currently happening in Forest Grove and in our surrounding counties, and all of the state with the mandate. We will see how that morphs and changes, or if we stay in certain phases, how that gets adjusted. But we will communicate that out as you get closer to being here. Please plan to come to Pacific with your face masks. There are certain medical conditions that people do not have to wear face masks. We are recommending, if you do have one of those, let's research what other options you might have. Shields are available. I know I have a colleague of mine who definitely wants a shield because they have some medical situations going on. I have a friend who has asthma and that's difficult for them. So there's lots of options, but please, we are requiring face coverings, face masks, shields at this time to adhere to all the regulations.
Thank you. Will there be face masks available for students who don't have them on any given day? That's the other question that we got.
Sure. So Pacific is putting together a welcome care kit. Every student will get one of those at the centralized check-in, and inside there is a mask. So you will have at least one mask available to you on campus. We will have other masks available. People are getting very creative as well as to how to create face coverings. I know that Student Senate has purchased a number to hand out as well throughout the different activities as school begins. So there's lots of different options, but I do recommend that you have and bring some face masks. There are online tutorials about how to make them if you don't know how. There's even, my grandmother sent my sister a bunch of supplies, and my sister does not sew, so she sent her the information on how to create a no-sew mask. So there's lots of options and opportunities out there to create those.
Perfect. And the next question is, how will quarantine rules be regulated with parents visiting from out of state to protect the students on campus?
Can you repeat that? I want to make sure I understand that.
Yeah, so for those who are, I guess, visiting campus, how are we regulating the quarantine rules for families or parents that are visiting from out of state?
Okay, so I'm going to try to dissect, so I hope I get the answer to your question. So on the day that your student arrives, you will be here. We will be asking the same things that we're asking anybody. Self-monitor prior. If you have any symptoms, do not come to campus. Wear your face coverings. And then once your day is done on campus, that you leave and not return. I know that is really hard. Every time I say it out loud, my heart just hurts a little bit. I know how difficult that can be. But that's the way that we are trying to mitigate so many different guests on campus, because we're also doing extra cleanings of the touch points in the residence halls and around campus to try to provide as safe of an environment as possible. And we're only able to do that with your assistance. Now, if for some reason the next day your student needed something and you were still in town and you needed to drop it off, of course you can drop it off. But please try to adhere to not coming back to campus to stay for long periods of time, just so we can provide that same experience for all of our guests traveling and our students. Gina, does that get to what they're asking?
Yeah, and I am actually having a couple of side conversations, so I apologize if I'm going back and forth, but it actually all ties in together, and I think this might be a good time to address. I think a lot of people are having kind of trouble envisioning what it's going to look like when we say people can't come back onto campus. I think the joke last time when Sarah Phillips was here is that it's not prison, and we started calling her Warden Phillips. And so I guess there is a little bit of confusion into how that interaction is going to happen between students and families. Um, we're not shutting down campus like if you're only a student, you're the only one allowed here. It's more the actual buildings, the dorm buildings. We're not opening that up, especially for even the new incoming class of prospective families. Tours are all going to be completely outside. So could you kind of give a better idea of kind of what that social interaction is going to be? I know that's really important for a lot of students, especially because they've been home for so long and they really kind of need to be able to have that human interaction. Are they only going to be allowed to talk with students that are in their class and who are kind of in their wing, and kind of how does that look like? What is going to be that social aspect of college and being on campus?
Yeah, this is difficult. We're all in this place. We're all ready to be out of our homes. So we're doing a couple of different things. The day that your student arrives, that's why they will have a schedule of where they need to be at what times, and that's going to be randomized for the different groups that come in according to time frame. Once you leave, we will be providing activities that your student can participate in to help them be out. We're trying to do as much as possible outside because we know that is safer because of the air quality, right? Large ventilated areas. Some of those fun things we're going to be able to still do. We're talking about tie-dye, yoga on the lawn, geocaching around campus. So there's a lot of things that we are looking at. How can we program? Do it in those small cohorts of pods. Obviously, your student is going to be going to class with other people. Social distancing, wearing their masks, all of that is going to be critical to keeping as many people as safe as possible. And I can't say that enough. That's why we're really telling people early, right now, that is what is required. That is what our plan is. That was what we will be doing to adhere, and to also just to mitigate any type of transmission as possible. We all live in this world right now that there's a lot of unknowns, and that's difficult as well. But we're trying to take out as many of the unknowns as possible with what we can do to mitigate some of that ahead of time. So your students are still going to be able to interact. It just may not be that they're going to 5 different residence halls. That's not something right now. We want to, at some point in the semester, lift some of those restrictions. But we just have to see how things go and how it starts to roll out. So we're being a little on the stricter side right now as we roll people in, just so we can adhere to phase 1. But also just so everybody coming onto campus has that same great experience of getting there, getting moved in if you live on campus, meeting those peers that you're going to be living with or commuting with or online with, however that may be for you, and having some of those social interactions. We also know student activities are planning all different types of events. Some of them are virtual, some of them are in small groups. That's all being developed. This is ever changing. We're all learning different things, and as people's ideas come out, it's like, oh, how could we make that happen, and thinking through how to make that happen with all of those different parameters. So I hope that helps just paint a picture that you are right. I know that Dean Phillips has said this is not a prison. I find it very humorous that her new non-nickname is
Warden Phillips.
Yes. So that's not what it's going to be like. That's not what we want it to be like. We don't even want that to be what it is in our own homes. And I know right now that kind of feels that way. So as much as we can get people outside, sunshine does great things. Obviously, I'm wearing a light jacket today because I'm ready for that sunshine to come out today. Usually about 3 o'clock it comes out.
Yeah.
But you know, getting people out and around campus and active as much as possible, that's our goal.
Perfect. Thank you so much for explaining that. I know that was kind of a question that a lot of people had. And I know we're kind of towards the end of our kind of hour session. There were just a few more questions that I'm hoping that I can just kind of group them together. Maybe you can answer. And then any other questions that we weren't able to answer, again, I will make sure that we follow up with you on an individual basis via email after this session. So just keep an eye out for that. We will be posting this video. And next week is actually going to be, I was about to say Warden Phillips. That's really bad. Dean Phillips. Sarah's going to be here as well as Denise. So we will have another kind of updated session for you guys. So we can continue this discussion and have this conversation open. The first couple of things was about the insurance waivers. You can find information about that online. For the individual that did email me, I will go ahead and email you with a link to the insurance waiver and how to find that information. If you're having trouble logging into your insurance, then you also want to reach out to the help desk. It's the technology help desk. I will also follow up with an email about how to get that restarted. But the 3 questions that are coming in, thank you so much for that. So Help at Pacific Youth, that's going to be the help desk for resetting your online login information, and they'll be able to help you with that. The few questions that came in, they're all kind of COVID related and about what our policies are. The first question is, if a student refuses to wear a mask, what is Pacific's policy on that? Some universities are not letting one on campus if they've been out of state in the 14 days, so they can kind of quarantine before they can come onto campus. What's our rule for that? And kind of similar is if they're coming from a hot spot where it is kind of considered a high kind of COVID area, are they going to be allowed to visit or asked to leave? So I know that was kind of a big, broad question, and I can repeat it if you need me to, but I guess we can start with the first one. If they don't want to wear a mask, what is our policy?
So what I can tell you of all of these things are being discussed. I don't have all those answers at this moment, but what you can do is if you go onto our website, and I can put it in the chat here, on the main page, there's a big yellow bar that says COVID-19. I think it's pacificu.edu/COVID-19. All of those policies and information are there that have currently been developed. Not everything is there yet because it hasn't been vetted and approved, but as that becomes available, that's where you can find that information. It's really difficult with the face masks, right? Because that's what we're asking and requiring people to do. That is a conversation that I know is happening right now as to what do we do if somebody doesn't want to wear it. And I can't answer that at this moment. What was the other 2?
Is if they're coming from a hot spot or if they're coming from out of state, are they going to be allowed onto campus? Will there be a quarantine period for them, but prior to moving in?
So again, at this moment, what we're requiring is that you self-monitor starting 18 days before. That 14 days is super critical. If you have any symptoms, and there will be information that gets sent out, like if this happens or this happens and you're not able to move in, we will continue to do move-ins as you are able, who to contact to reschedule that. But if there's any concern that you've been exposed, that you might have something, then of course you'll want to follow up with your care physician and go through that normal process. And that's the best thing that you can do. We obviously will be asking you to self-monitor and fill out, an attestation form that's being developed right now. That'll happen right before you arrive. So it's best to follow up with your care physician or your care physician's team if something arises on that. We're not medical professionals. And so we are recommending that you connect with them and then communicate. That's the biggest thing. Communicate with us what's going on. And if you're ill, that's okay. I mean, it's not okay. But on our side, we will help you get into the university when it is safe for you to arrive.
Perfect. Thank you. Last two questions that I do believe is going to be fairly quick, and I think we're going to wind down on this here. One is, do we have dorm elevators moving in? Will there be dollies that they can have, or do they need to bring their own? I know in the past there were a couple that students were able to borrow. Is that going to be the case this year?
So some of the residence halls have elevators. I mean, all of the residence halls have elevators. Some of them are not publicly accessible. They're an old enough residence hall that they're more of a freight elevator. And we have worked to try to have those available for those heavy items such as refrigerators. With dollies, we do have some that will be out and available. We'll obviously be having to clean those between each person's usage. If you have one, I would recommend that you bring it just in case, because we don't have a large number of those available. So if that's a concern that you have, I would recommend, and you have one, I would recommend that you bring it.
Perfect. Is there a full service bank on campus? And what's the nearest one that we have, if not?
Sure. So we have an on-site ATM machine. It is through Bank of the West. Their main branch is about a block and a half off campus. We also partner with US Bank, and on the back of their ID card, they have the US Bank logo, so they can use their ID card and create an account with US Bank, which is about a block off campus. They're very close together, actually. So those are our two that either we partner with or that we have directly on campus, and it's just the ATM on campus. There's also Wells Fargo is within walking distance as well. And there's a number of other banks if your student has a vehicle, or at some point the public transit is up and running more than it is now, that they could get to a couple of the other banks in town. We will be adding that information is actually in the newsletter that will be forthcoming. We're hoping to have it out by early next week, just finalizing those little details on there. So yes, there is a Chase Bank. Unfortunately, I cannot tell you where the closest one is because the one that was closest just closed that branch. And so I have not researched as to exactly where the closest Chase Bank is, but it is within about no more than a 15-mile radius.
Yeah, I think usually if you do like a Google search, it'll pop up kind of the nearby bank. So that'll probably give you a better idea if you have a specific bank that you're working with to know where the closest one is. I am actually getting a lot of requests about, oh, can I get this information too? So what I'm going to do, kind of what we've done in the past is with the recording of this video, I'll put together a Q&A sheet where we go ahead and add in the questions that you've asked, and we'll put in the answers. So that way you can actually refer to that and get the other information as well too. So we'll be working on that and sending out that information so that everybody has that information. And next week, again, we have Dean Phillips coming in, and Denise will be back as well too. So we're not losing Denise. We still have her next week. I apologize. This went a little bit over than our initial hour time slot. So thank you so much. The recording of the Zoom sessions, we try to send it out at least by Friday. When the Q&A sheets are there, I think they typically take us a little bit longer, at least by Monday, but no later than that. So we'll be able to try and work through as hard as we can to get all of that information out there for you guys. Again, Denise's contact information is in there. Reach out to your admissions counselor if you have any other questions as well too. But otherwise, there was one more thing I was gonna say, and I thought it was gonna pop back up, but I don't have it. It's at the tip of my tongue. So you'll be hearing from me at the Q&A again. Thank you so much, Denise, for dropping in and answering all of these questions. Hopefully we were able to answer everybody's question as much as we could. Next week, again, we have another update. So we will see you then. Until then, please take care, stay safe, everybody, and we will see you next week. Thank you so much, Denise. Bye, everybody. Have a good day.
Bye.